Okay, guys, so after covering briefly the 2001-02 PSL season and the AFCON, um, let's get into the Carlos Queiroz bullshit. So, post AFCON, which was around February, March, Carlos Queiroz and Safa were having a bit of a lover's tiff because, basically speaking, Safa appointed a technical committee who were basically acting as Carlos Queiroz's bosses. So, in their capacity, from my understanding, they were to meet with Carlos Queiroz, speak to him about the development of the game, um, uh, his selections, their criteria that they had based on, I don't want to say quota agenda, but it is what it is. It's quota agendas and that sort of thing. Carlos Queiroz himself had an issue with that as Safa headhunted him, and now they're putting him with the way that they're acting. It seems like he's on borrowed time, you get me? Because one of the guys on the technical committee was Jomo Sono, who's already an active coach, you see now. So it is kind of a weird dynamic where you are the national team coach and you have to answer to a PSL coach as to why you're picking this, and this, you see now. So, long story short, it looks like they put this guy on a PIP. Now, for those of you who haven't worked like corporate and trust me, you don't want to go in there. A PIP is essentially a probation on top of your probationary period. Let's say the company feels your work isn't up to standard or like you're lacking some things here and there. They sit you down and they tell you, trust me, I know this because I've been there. And I've seen it. They sit you down, they tell you, look, basically you have 90 days to pull up your socks, get your work rate up, get your shit together. And in my experience, and seeing other bras get it and myself get it, it's very rare that you survive that PIP. Because from the looks of things, it looks like they already have your replacement, but they're looking for things, small things, like to add up to a big thing that they can just say, bruh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 was unsatisfactory, and due to that, we're just going to have to let you go, unfortunately. Which is ironic because, an employer can get rid of you at a moment's notice, depending on what you did, right? Or they give you a notice of like a day or something like that, or a week at most. But you are required by law, labor law in SA, you are required by law to give the employer a notice period. Yeah, like the dynamic is weird, but yeah, I guess it is what it is. As Carlos Queiroz stated, and I'm quoting this from an article written by Rob Delport. The name of the article is "A Lot Has Changed for Queiroz and Bafana in 20 Years." It was written on the 3rd of February 2022. Queiroz was stated as saying, quote, "It is a matter of principle and ethics. The issue at stake is who has final control over the selection of players, and I'm not prepared to share that responsibility. I cannot compromise my professionalism." End quote. If you guys are familiar with SA sports law, you'll notice that it sounds ominously familiar to the Jake White, Saru, Luke Watson saga that happened before the 2006-07 Rugby World Cup. So for those of you that don't know the backstory, Jake White had selected a provisional squad of 45 players to go to like the training camp, the World Cup training camp. Then he's gonna cut it down to a final squad. Supposedly, well, not supposedly, according to Jake White himself, according to Jake White himself in his book, he wrote that like the Saru guys, Oregon Hoskins and Mike Stofield, they pulled him to the side and they began asking him, they began grilling him about his selection. Like why guys like Kabamba Flores weren't selected, and then why Luke Watson wasn't selected. Which at the time, it was a bit strange, because Kabamba Flows, I think he was killing it for, who was he playing for? The Cheetahs, yeah. He was killing it there, and he was Sevens captain. And Luke Watson was Stormers captain, and the Stormers had made it to the Super 14 semi-finals, give or take. Issue was he was playing same position as John Smith, and John Smith was John Smith, right? You're not going to replace John Smith. So they're asking him, okay, why isn't this guy in the team? And Jake White's like, nah, bruh, I didn't pick him because I didn't feel he'd make the final squad, so it would be unfair on him to pick. It would be unfair of me to pick him, knowing that he's not going to make the final squad when I have most of my final squad ready in my head. Then this is where the supposedly part comes in. Supposedly, Oregon Hoskins and Mike Stofila are like, hey, bruh, add this guy to the squad, bruh. Like, hey, bruh, hey. Allegedly, like, they were having pressure from Luke Watson's family also, allegedly. Jake White didn't budge, and then the squad was released, and then Luke Watson, like, the quote from Jake White's book was written, handwritten at the bottom of the page was number 46, Luke Watson. Jake White didn't approve this. The guys at Saru, like, made the call to include him and such. So, yeah, man, it sounds like not back in the day, for all we know it's still going on, like, governing bodies in sports in SA seem to, like, undermine their coaches and all of that, like, and it seems to be speaking on a level of interference on a multitude of levels, consistently over the years. As for the Carlos Queiroz saga, him and Safa, the way I see it, they kind of screwed the guy over, because let's look at it from this point. You bring me in to do something proper, right? I'm doing it, I'm working on making it proper. You bring someone on top of me to supervise and micromanage me, question my decisions. Why would you bring me in the first place if you're going to question what I'm doing? Like, my track record would show that, like, I'm capable of what I'm doing, but why you're undermining me, so to speak. So I can see where Carlos Queiroz is coming from, but at the same time, from, like, Safa's perspective, I can kind of see it, because at the end of the day, you have to answer to someone as the coach. You will answer, and in that instance, it just happened to be the technical team. I think as well, the thing that bothered him anyway was that, like, there was an active coach on the technical committee. So yeah, you were kind of undermining him, so to speak. But nevertheless, Carlos Queiroz left in March. Jomo Sono took over, and then he was the caretaker coach going into the World Cup.